everyone, and thank you, Paul. I think what you guys are doing is amazing and resonates so much. We are touching on a similar problem that has opened up, I think, a year later, and that's in marketing. And that's with the rise of AI as its own marketing channel. That's obviously something you all know that's happening very, very fast. Let me share my presentation. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Perfect. So I'd love to touch on three main topics here in our presentation. First, maybe a very short overview of what's going on in the market right now. Then we can take a look at our platform and how are we approaching this market shift. And at the end of it, from our angle, from our corner, at what we're doing, we can speak about what are the characteristics that we are seeing in large enterprises that are already starting to have good success with their AI visibility? And why is this problem maybe not ideal for a very large enterprise to solve? So the revolution really isn't coming anymore. You know it, and on the media landscape, it's here as well. The new frontier is definitely already here. Brands do need to start controlling for their brand's AI visibility. There's a seismic shift that's happening. We are seeing it in two main fashions. First of all, the masses are definitely moving to start finding brands and interacting with brands through the different AI engines. And also another shift that's probably as big, if not bigger, is that the consumer behavior right now is shifting dramatically. People are spending more than twice in AI engines when they are looking for brands, and the behavior around it is very, very different as well. It's obviously a very different thing to go to Google and ask maybe something like best pickup truck 2025, or to go to Perplexity and let it take you through the entire consideration process, because I completely qualified myself by saying I'm looking to buy a pickup truck for my work, but it's also going to serve me at home, and fuel efficiency really matters to me. What are the best options under $60,000? Everyone obviously is already talking about it. We're seeing it, and for us, we have just maybe I'll say a word about BrandLight. We, for the past year, has been both selling and helping brands first to understand what their AI visibility is, and then to also understand how to influence it, how to actively influence it on mass scale. We are mostly approaching large enterprises. And I'd say that since the start of this new year, we have seen a very significant uptick, both in adoption, but also in the understanding of both the companies and the agencies in the space to the shift that's already coming. At BrandLight, we are a very data-driven company. We have and are have already analyzed over tens of millions of different queries about brands to study the behavior of these AI engines. And maybe just to touch a little bit on the current market shifts that are happening. So a big question that we get all the time is about the relationship of SEO and AI engines. And there are definitely some similarities. There are big differences as well. So there are three phases that are going on right now. We have, when we ask an engine like Perplexity or like ChatGPT a question, we go to a first phase of page selection. That phase is where the AI system essentially decides which sources to read, and it is impacted by SEO. It is not directly SEO, but there is a fairly good correlation. It depends on the engine, but we can see between 50 to sometimes 75% correlation there. That correlation is happening because these AI engines do rely on search engine to a big extent, and also because the environment right now is mostly optimized for SEO and not for GEO, and definitely not for full optimization in AI. But then we have two other phases that are completely new. We have the content access, which decides which parts of every piece of content to actually deem relevant. And we have the synthesis phase, which is very interesting by itself and is also completely new. And this is where an engine like Perplexity will actually use spoke Paul about, for example, Google's and OpenAI's deep research. How do I now decide, after I read 120 different sources, what to synthesize to your 10 pages of that answer? And the findings are very interesting there. We also are seeing a shift from SEO to a more universal and broad search. GEO, or the optimization for AI engines, GEO obviously just being a small piece of this entire thing, lives in a multi-search universe where different use cases are handled by different AI engines that each have a massive impact, and brands need to understand and optimize across all these fronts right now. We are seeing the rise of multimodal LLMs as they contain to search. We are actually seeing in our data that YouTube, for some of the engines, is really risen, and for many of the cases, is actually for many verticals, the number one most cited websites, and not necessarily for high production videos or for very well-known content streams, sometimes for very daily conversational videos as well that are making a very big impact. Paid advertising is here. It's still on the low key, but it's definitely coming. We've seen Perplexity playing around with it and Google AI playing around with it as well. This will have big implications on us, on the organic market as well, as it will bring us much, much closer to seeing actual ROI and to closing that attribution loop. And I think a very interesting thing that's happening is that we almost are starting to see, not completely there yet, but definitely almost there, the full funnel dream, all in one modality. Perplexity is rolling out Shop with Perplexity. On the right, you actually have a prompt by me from today where I asked about how to sharpen a specific knife I have. And without even asking about it, at the end of the response I got from ChatGPT, it actually asked me if I want to get recommendations, which I said yes to, and it recommended me specific products about it. So we're seeing this new modality really becoming an epitome of full funnel. We're getting in through the front door, going through the entire consideration process within it, and very, very soon also making the purchase directly from within it. I'd love to show you a little bit around our platform as well and our approach to it. So I will just share. Yes. So the data that I'm showing you in the platform right now is actually real data, but it's outdated data to some extent. So what we aim to do for brand and try to do for brand is both give them the key to all of these new closed gardens that we are entering and seeing right now, as well as to start helping them understand. And you used that phrase, Paul, we're using it as well. What are the opportunity gaps that keep opening up in each of these spaces because of how fast AI is being implemented, but also by how fast it's growing and changing? And our approach to it starts from visibility. So we are letting a brand understand and know their competitive presence, their positioning. We do that for each brand topic. We break it down to all of the relevant categories. We are creating for each brand very specific, very targeted customer journeys. That's even a notch above queries. For each brand of a brand's product line or product topic, we would be creating tens, sometimes hundreds of thousands of these journeys that we are monitoring on an ongoing basis to understand what sources are impacting them and what sentiments are being driven by them. We're testing for a brand's competitive presence. We're testing for their both direct and indirect sentiment. And we also are understanding for each brand what the heat map of the internet is for them. We analyze for each brand what pieces of the internet have the most effect on it, how many of them are third-party content, how many of them are social media, and how many of them are brand-owned. And from that, we start on an ongoing basis to generate for these brands very specific insights as well as actionable recommendations about the content efforts that they need to start taking, about partnerships and undervalued opportunities in the market that they could and should start leaning into to start seizing these opportunity gaps. Sorry, I go back to now. And we are seeing from the brands that we are working with and from analyzing different verticals in the entire spaces that brands that are leaning into it and that do take an integrated approach to both their content as well as their strategy, as their partnerships strategies, do have the ability to influence their portrayal in these engines quite significantly. So what should brands be doing? And when we ask this question, there are the tactics that brands should be taking right now. And there are definitely a lot of tactics that brands should get familiar with and start implementing. I think the main thing here, and Paul, you touched on it as well, is that this entire landscape is changing every few months. But the fact that it is changing doesn't mean that it's not important to be on top of each of these changes. Because the brands that keep racing to fill out these gaps, they are starting to open bigger and bigger and bigger gaps. And the reality that you described about brands being maybe 20% more efficient and then 50% more efficient, but then maybe 300% more efficient, we are seeing that in marketing as well. So I actually wanted to touch upon for a few minutes on the three characteristics and strategic decisions that we are seeing from the big brands that are actually starting to have big successes here. And those are jumping in versus waiting for this entire wave to stabilize in making a decision, creating the right types of partnerships, and activating the right teams internally. I assume these are very similar to the characteristics that you are meeting with as well. I'd say that the first one is that done is better than perfect here. As far as AI as a marketing channel goes, AI visibility is very much a zero-sum game, and it is already begun. Perplexity at a time will only give one answer, will only rank one brand at the top of its answer. And it is just the reality that no large brand can really move as fast as this market demands it to move. But if you just move faster and better than your competitors, you can gain that number one spot. And we are seeing really amazing shifts from mid-market players as well as from the bigger players in the market. Inaction right now, as far as this channel goes, will be your number one enemy. SEO is important, but it's also important not to use it as a crutch. SEO strategies are different, both in approach as well as in implementation, than AI optimization strategies. The second one is creating the right partnerships. And obviously we are biased here, so I will put that asterisk, but this is a technological shift first that's followed closely by a market shift and the market that's happening after it. And we have now entered an era where there are many closed gardens as far as marketing channels with these different AI engines. And you really need to be, for the foreseeable future, on top of all of them, closing all of these opportunity gaps as they start opening up. And it is and will be almost an impossible task for each or for 100,000 person enterprise to be able to be on top of everything that's going on in so many fronts. So creating the right partnerships, whether it's with companies like BrandLight, but also whether it's with agencies and with teams that really understand and can utilize the right technologies to be on top of this shift, is the second domino that is nurturing success. The third one that we're seeing is the ability to activate your teams internally in the correct way. And the more successful teams that we're seeing understand that the initiative to move forward in this space should be led from the top. For example, the search department in the organization should always be involved in this effort, but it shouldn't be the only department that's involved in that effort. Activating owned content is very important, but creating the right partnerships, understanding which opportunities are undervalued in the marketing in AI engines goes a very, very long way right now. Taking that integrated approach to understand how to hit both SEO as well as GEO means for a lot right now. And I truly believe that this is probably the last year that we will have where Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies don't have a significant specified budget for their AI visibility. I think you are seeing this as well, but we definitely feel that there is a huge market opportunity here. Fast movers will unlock it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Fantastic work. So let's thanks for raising your hand if you want to ask questions. We'll start with Rosemary. Thank you, Rosemary.
Hi, thanks. So this was really excellent. Thanks very much. I just have a couple of questions. So you talk about YouTube being an important website. So a lot of our clients have, 60-minute webinars. Is there some kind of a length that the AI will read? Will it read all of that content or a portion of it?
First of all, YouTube is fascinating, and that's a great question. Webinars are very important, like I said, the AI will extract it, but it may synthesize only parts of it. We are seeing, I just showed you in the demo, I think we had a Cadillac Lyric for the platform when we pulled it out right now. When you look at automotive, for example, and that's just anecdotal, you see that many of the YouTube sources that are getting pulled are conversational. So it is very important, but a lot of them tend to be very short videos, so up to 60 seconds, of people almost actually reviewing the car while speaking about it. And why does that make sense and why is that important? Those are very conversational. They almost touch upon the questions that are being asked by users. And there are a lot of them. There is actually a very interesting behavior that's, again, anecdotal because this is something that's happening right now. It may change in the future, but let's touch again on Paul's description of deep search. Deep search would go and read 100 articles for you. And if it saw a specific sentiment that's being repeated in many of these sources, it will elicit it to start leaning in more and more to that sort of sentiment. So we are actually seeing that even short YouTube videos are having a very big impact at this moment right now.
Okay, and one last question. So how important is having a Wikipedia page for brands? Because it's a really hard thing to get if you're not established.
Yeah, it is important. FAQs right now we are seeing having a lot of impact. Actually, some of the verticals or some of the specific brands that we are seeing that are having the most amount of their brand-owned content out of all the content that is creating their AI sentiments are brands that are utilizing their .com as well as the robust and healthy Help website and the community website, right? Because those would touch on 3 different types of sources, maybe the official, the FAQs, but also the ones that are very conversational, user-generated questions with user and the team's feedback in response.
Great. Let's go to Liz and then Lucinda next. Go ahead, Liz.
Thank you for the presentation. It's interesting and fascinating, and I'm living it right now with brands that I work with, experiencing it, not really knowing how to allocate their budgets. For this monitoring service or analysis that you do, how are you working with brands on this? Are you piloting with them? Are they, what's the way to get started?
So first of all, would be happy to speak to you later and maybe we can help you. We're working directly with large enterprises right now, as well as with agencies. And the model that we work in is a SaaS model where we give all of the data and services. We really don't want to limit them on that part. From there, we are generating these specific insights for them. And it's almost right now an impossible task for a brand to be on top of all of these closed gardens. We see it as the value that we aim to deliver, to always be able to show you out of all these opportunity gaps, which ones are the most highly leveraged for you, so that you always know, whatever position you are in right now, exactly what the next 3 steps should be for your brands. And they can be different for each brand. And those opportunities can be around content creation, for example, optimizing your own content, like we just spoke about. But we are working with other brands as well on assessing their partnerships with big publishers, right? Because we already are seeing which parts of the internet are most relevant to you. It's one thing to be a big publisher and have millions of views, but if your content isn't getting synthesized at all by AI engines, that means that your stock will start deteriorating really, really fast. I hope that answered it. Thank you for your time.